The night before my routine heart checkup, I was alone in my lakeside cabin in Minnesota, the only light coming from the desk lamp as I sorted my old pill bottles. My phone lit up. Caller ID showed Pamela. She didn't waste time. "Dad, cancel your heart appointment tomorrow. We need you to watch the kids this weekend. We booked Hawaii non-refundable flights and everything. Family steps up when it counts." I tried to stay calm. "Pamela, this is my scheduled checkup." The doctor said not to delay again. She sighed sharply. "Dad, you're always putting the doctor ahead of family. It's just a few days of babysitting. Timothy agrees with me." I heard my son in the background, silent. No objection, just a quiet exhale. Pamela pressed harder. "Think about it, Dad. Don't make this hard on us." The line went dead. The next morning they pulled up to the cabin without warning. Pamela opened the door, kids in tow with overnight bags. "Here they are, Dad. We have to catch our flight to Hawaii." She gave a quick smirk as she turned away, Timothy trailing behind without a word. I didn't argue. I let them leave. I still went to my appointment as scheduled. They thought I was overreacting until the doctor called. And my son's face went pale. If you've ever been pressured by family to put your health last, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happened next when the truth finally hit them. The morning fog was lifting off the lake as sunlight hit the water, turning it silver. I sat by the big window with my coffee gone cold phone in hand, scrolling back through years of messages I'd never deleted. There they were, the patterns I'd ignored for too long. One from Pamela 5 years ago, timestamp 8:07 a.m. "Dad the sitter just canceled emergency at her house. Can you come over? I'm in the middle of a huge meeting and Tim's already left for work." I remembered that day clearly. I was already in the waiting room at Dr. Caldwell's clipboard. On my lap, heart monitor leads stuck to my chest. I stood up, told the nurse I had a family emergency, and drove straight to their place. The appointment got rescheduled again. Another one 3 years back. "Hey, Dad. Tim and I really need a break this weekend. The kids have been non-stop. Can you take them? We'll drop them off Friday night." I had just come off a rough week. Palpitations kept me up most nights, chest tight, like someone sitting on it. I still said yes. They arrived at dusk with the kids' hugs all around, and left before the sun was fully down. I spent the next 2 days managing tantrums, meals, and bedtime stories, while my prescription bottle sat untouched on the counter. Then there were the group texts from relatives. Aunt Linda once wrote Ron, "You're retired now, plenty of time to help with the grandkids. It's what grandparents do." Cousin Mark added a thumbs-up emoji, and kids come first. Right. No one asked how I was feeling. No one mentioned the cardiologist visits or the beta blockers I'd started taking. It was always assumed I was available, always ready, always the backup plan. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. After my wife passed, I told myself being there for the grandkids would keep some piece of family alive. I pictured her smile when she held our son as a baby, the way she'd insist we drop everything for them. So I did. I dropped work calls, canceled my own follow-ups, swallowed the fatigue, because saying no felt like failing her memory. But over time, the truth settled in, heavier than any pill. I wasn't keeping the family together. I was just the convenient option when plans fell apart. My thumb hovered over the delete button for a moment, then I locked the screen instead. Enough looking back. I stood up, knees stiff from sitting too long, and walked to the bedroom. The new prescription bottle from last month sat on the dresser, still half full, because I'd skipped doses when the kids were here. I slipped it into my pocket, grabbed my jacket, and headed for the door. This time was different. This time, I wasn't letting anyone pull me away from the appointment. The lake outside was calm. Now, mirror flat under the rising sun. I locked the cabin behind me, started the car, and drove toward the road that led to Dr. Caldwell's office. The morning of the appointment arrived. I drove along the winding forest road, tall pines flashing past the windows, until the clinic came into view about 40 minutes later. Inside, the receptionist recognized me right away. I checked in, sat in the familiar waiting area, with the same outdated magazines, then was called back for vitals. The nurse wrapped the cuff around my arm, blood pressure a little higher than usual, then attached the leads for the ECG. The machine hummed as it printed the strip-jagged lines I'd seen too many times. Dr. Caldwell came in a few minutes later, chart in hand. He pulled up the stool eyes on the screen first, then on me. His voice dropped lower than normal. The arrhythmia is more pronounced than last visit. We're also seeing increased plaque buildup in the coronary arteries. If we keep delaying or layering on significant stress, the risk of heart attack or stroke becomes very real, much higher than we'd like. I didn't speak right away. The words landed heavy. My mind went straight to Ellen. 8 years ago, she'd had the same warning signs. Shortness of breath she blamed on allergies. Fatigue she pushed through. One morning I found her collapsed in the kitchen, gone before the ambulance even turned onto our street. The coroner said massive myocardial infarction. I still remember the exact second the doctor told me. The room went silent except for the clock ticking on the wall. I swore then I wouldn't let the same thing happen to me. Yet here I was, sitting in the same chair, listening to the same kind of talk. Dr. Caldwell waited until my eyes met his again. "Who's your emergency contact? We need someone reliable who can make decisions if things go sideways." I hesitated, then wrote Timothy's name and number on the form. My hand shook slightly as I handed it back. The doctor noticed. "Is he dependable when it counts?" I gave a small nod, but inside the doubt was loud. Calls from me often went to voicemail. Messages got short replies days later. Still, he was my son, the only immediate family left. Dr. Caldwell leaned forward. "Ron, listen to me carefully. Your heart doesn't care about family obligations or guilt. It needs consistency meds on time, rest, low stress. You've got to put yourself first now, before something forces the issue. We can manage this if we stay ahead of it, but we can't keep kicking the can down the road." He renewed the prescription, added a low-dose statin, and scheduled a follow-up in 6 weeks, with a stress echo if things didn't improve. I nodded through the instructions, but the fear was already coiling tighter in my chest, not just for what might happen, but for the loneliness that would follow if it did. Dying alone like Ellen had no one there to hold my hand, no voice saying it would be okay. That thought hurt more than any palpitation. I left the exam room with the fresh printout and the new pill bottles rattling in the bag. The receptionist smiled as I passed. "Take care, Mr. Baxter." I managed a polite, "You too," but my mind was elsewhere. Outside, the air was crisp, pine-scented. I stood by the car for a moment, looking back at the low brick building that had become too familiar. The fear hadn't left, but it had sharpened into something else resolve. I wasn't going to repeat the same mistakes. Not this time. I got in, started the engine, and began the drive back to the cabin. I pulled into the gravel drive and stepped out of the car, the clinic bag still in my hand. I hadn't even made it to the fridge for a glass of water when I heard tires crunch outside, then the soft, confused whimper of one of the grandchildren. The front door creaked open before I could reach it. Pamela walked in first, holding the younger one's hand, while Timothy followed with the older boy and 2 duffel bags. She didn't greet me. She just set the bags down and said, "Dad, we have to get to the airport right now. Flight to Hawaii leaves in 3 hours. The kids are staying with you." The younger one, 5 years old, looked up at me with wide eyes clutching a stuffed bear. The older boy, 9, stood silently beside his father, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I opened my mouth, but Pamela kept talking. "We already checked them in online. Everything's set. "You've got the spare room ready, right?" Timothy spoke then, voice barely above a whisper. "It's only the weekend, Dad. I promise we'll be back Sunday night." Pamela turned to him with a quick look, then back to me. She gave a short, tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Dad, you're always making a big deal out of the doctor stuff. A couple days watching them won't kill you." The words landed like a slap. I felt my pulse kick up sharp, irregular, the same flutter I'd felt in the clinic earlier. I looked at the kids, then at my son. Timothy avoided my gaze, staring at the floorboards. They didn't wait for an answer. Pamela knelt, hugged each child, quickly told them to be good for Grandpa, then stood. "We love you guys. See you soon." Timothy gave each boy a pat on the shoulder, awkward, brief, and they both headed for the door. I watched them walk out. Pamela glanced back, once that same smirk flickering across her face as she pulled the door shut behind her. The engine started tires, spun on gravel, and the car disappeared down the drive. The cabin suddenly felt too quiet. The younger one started to cry, soft at first, then louder. The older boy put an arm around his brother, but his own lip trembled. I knelt down, pulled them both close. "It's okay," I said, though my own voice shook. "Grandpa's here." My chest tightened again, stronger this time. I could feel the irregular thump against my ribs, the way it skipped, then raced to catch up. I breathed slow, the way the nurse had taught me, but it didn't help much. I needed help. I couldn't do this alone right now, not with my heart acting up and 2 scared kids. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marlene Hayes. She lived 5 minutes away, just down the lakeshore path, the retired nurse who'd brought me soup after Ellen died, and checked on me every few weeks since. She answered on the second ring. "Ron, everything all right?" "No," I said. "They just dropped the boys off and left for Hawaii. I need help." My heart's racing again. "I'm coming," she said without hesitation. "Give me 3 minutes." True to her word, she arrived fast, walking quickly up the path in her fleece jacket, hair tied back. She stepped inside, took one look at me, then at the boys, and immediately knelt. "Hey, sweethearts," she said gently. "I'm Miss Marlene. Grandpa's not feeling great right now, so I'm going to hang out with you for a bit. Want to show me your bear?" The younger one sniffed and held it out. Marlene smiled, took his hand, then looked up at me. "Go sit down, Ron. Breathe. I've got him." I nodded, moved to the couch. She turned back to the boys. "Let's get you some juice and a snack, okay? Then we can play a game." While she settled them in the kitchen, I leaned my head back and closed my eyes. The palpitations eased a little, but the ache stayed deeper than physical. My own son had looked me in the eye and said nothing, while his wife handed off the kids like a package. No apology, no real promise, just a whisper and a smirk. Marlene came back after a few minutes, the boys occupied with crackers and a coloring book she'd brought from her bag. She sat beside me, voice low. "You okay to drive? Or should I call the clinic? I can drive," I said. "I need to get back for the follow-up labs this afternoon. They want another look." She studied my face. "Don't push it. Stress like this isn't good for you. I'll stay with the boys until you're back. Take your time." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you, Marlene. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'd manage," she said, "but you don't have to do it alone." I stood, slowly grabbed my keys and the clinic bag. The boys looked up from the table. The younger one waved his crayon. "Bye, Grandpa." I waved back, forcing a smile. "Be good for Miss Marlene. I'll see you soon." I stepped outside, the cool air hitting my face. My heart was still thumping unevenly, faster than it should. I got in, the car started the engine, and pulled away from the cabin, the sound of gravel under the tires drowning out everything else for a moment. Late afternoon arrived the sun, dipping behind the pine ridge, casting long shadows across the clinic parking lot. I walked into the extended care wing for the scheduled stress test, the echo of my footsteps, the only sound in the quiet hallway. The technician greeted me by name, led me to the small room with the treadmill and monitors. She explained the procedure again: walk at increasing speeds, while they tracked my heart rhythm, blood pressure, and any symptoms. "We'll stop immediately if anything looks off," she said. I nodded, changed into the gown, and sat on the edge of the exam table to wait. My phone buzzed in the pocket of my folded clothes. I pulled it out. Message from Pamela. "Dad, don't make a big deal with the doctor." "Okay. The boys keep asking where you are." I stared at the screen. The words hit like a fresh wave of pressure. My chest tightened instantly. Sharp, familiar. I set the phone face down, but the damage was done. The flutter started again, stronger than in the cabin, irregular thumps that made my breath catch. The technician came back. Ready I stood, stepped onto the treadmill. The belt started slow. I walked, then jogged lightly as the incline rose. The monitors beeped steadily at first, then the rhythm changed. A spike appeared on the screen, heart rate jumping, then dipping, skipping beats in a chaotic pattern. "Hold on," the technician said quickly. She hit the stop button. The belt slowed. I gripped the rails, breathing hard, sweat breaking out despite the short effort. Dr. Caldwell appeared within minutes, chart already in hand. He looked at the strip, then at me. "That's not normal, Ron. We saw a clear arrhythmia, spike likely triggered by acute stress. Your heart's been under too much strain from the repeated delays and whatever happened today." He helped me off the treadmill, sat me down, and handed me a small pill to dissolve under my tongue. "This will calm the rhythm. We need to stabilize you before we decide on next steps." While the medication worked, he pulled up my file. "This isn't new. The plaque built up, the irregular beats, they've worsened because we haven't had consistent control. Stress like this can push it over the edge." I nodded, still catching my breath. He picked up the phone on the wall unit. "I'm calling your emergency contact." "Timothy, right?" "Yes." Dr. Caldwell dialed. The speaker was on low, but I heard every word. "Timothy Baxter. This is Dr. Stephen Caldwell, your father's cardiologist. Ron is with me now at the clinic. He's experiencing a significant arrhythmia episode during his stress test. His heart rhythm became unstable, likely from accumulated stress and prior unmanaged symptoms. We're stabilizing him, but this is serious. If we need to intervene further, meds, monitoring, or admission, he needs someone here who can make decisions. Can you come in silence on the line for several seconds?" Then Timothy's voice, shaky. What happened? Is he okay? I'm at the airport. We just got here for Hawaii." The doctor's tone stayed calm but firm. "He's stable right now, but this could have been much worse. The pattern shows his heart has been under prolonged pressure. Family obligations have contributed to repeated delays in care. You need to get here, if possible. Decisions may need to be made quickly." Timothy's breathing came through the speaker, fast, uneven. We'll turn around. I didn't know it was this bad. Tell Dad I'm coming." The call ended. Dr. Caldwell set the phone down and looked at me. He sounded rattled. "That's a start." I didn't respond right away. The pill was working. The skipping eased, but the ache lingered. I thought about the smirk Pamela gave as they drove away, Timothy's quiet promise that meant nothing when the moment came. They'd left me with 2 scared kids and a heart that finally said enough. Now the doctor's call had cracked their vacation bubble wide open. The technician returned with a blanket and water. "We'll monitor you here for another half hour. If it stays steady, you can go home with instructions. No driving alone if it flares again. Call Marlene or 911. I thanked her. Dr. Caldwell added, "Ron, this was a warning shot. Listen to it. You can't keep absorbing everyone else's load." I nodded slowly. The room felt smaller, the beeps of the monitor a steady reminder. My son had heard the truth from someone he couldn't dismiss. For the first time, the consequences were landing on him too. I sat there watching the sun disappear completely outside the window, the sky turning deep blue. The fear was still there, but so was something new, clarity. Whatever came next, I wasn't facing it the same way anymore. Darkness had settled over the lake when I heard the familiar crunch of tires on gravel. Headlights swept across the windows, then cut off. The cabin door opened without a knock. Timothy and Pamela stepped in, faces flushed and tired from the rush back. They'd canceled Hawaii mid-transit, caught the first flight out from the connecting airport. Their clothes still carried the faint smell of airplane air. The boys ran to them immediately, arms outstretched. Pamela knelt to hug them tight, while Timothy stood, frozen eyes locked on me where I sat on the couch. He spoke first, voice cracking. "Dad," the doctor called. He said it was bad, really bad. "Are you okay?" I nodded slowly. "I'm stable now. Sit down." Pamela looked up, still holding the younger one. We came as fast as we could. "What happened exactly?" I took a breath, keeping my tone even. "This afternoon during the stress test, my heart rhythm spiked, irregular, dangerous. Dr. Caldwell said it's from years of built-up pressure, years of delaying checkups because I was watching the kids last minute skipping doses when things got hectic here. The plaque in my arteries has worsened. One more big push, and it could have been a heart attack or worse." Timothy sat heavily on the armchair, elbows on knees. Pamela stayed on the floor with the boys, her face paling. "But we didn't know it was that serious. You always said you were fine." I said that because I didn't want to burden anyone, I replied. But the doctor made it clear today. The delays weren't just occasional, they were consistent. Every time a sitter canceled, or you needed a weekend off, or the kids got sick, I dropped my appointments. I thought it was what family does. Turns out it was me paying the price alone. Timothy rubbed his face. I should have listened more. I didn't think Pamela cut in, voice defensive, but quieter now. "We thought you were exaggerating a little. Babysitting is normal grandparent stuff. We never meant to hurt you." I looked between them. Normal doesn't mean free. I'm single, living out here by myself. I don't have a partner to share the load. When you drop everything on me without asking, when you assume I'll always be available, it stops being help and starts being expectation. And expectations like that can kill someone. The room went quiet, except for the soft ticking of the wall clock. The older boy climbed onto Timothy's lap, confused. The younger one clung to Pamela's leg. Timothy finally spoke again, voice low. I didn't realize how bad it was. I should have stepped up sooner. "I'm sorry, Dad." I held his gaze. Sorry is a start. But words alone don't fix this. From now on, everything has to be planned in advance. No last-minute drop-offs. No assuming I'll cover when your plans change. If you need help with the boys, ask ahead. Give me time to schedule around my health. And if you can't respect that, if you keep treating me like the default backup, then I'll have to step back completely. I can't risk my life anymore to make things convenient. Pamela swallowed hard. We understand. We'll figure it out. We'll get a regular sitter. We won't do this again." Timothy nodded. "We won't. I promise." I didn't respond right away. The promises felt fragile, like so many before. But I'd said what needed saying. The boundary was set not out of anger, but survival. Marlene, who had been quietly sitting in the corner chair, stood up. "Boys, let's get your things together. Mommy and Daddy are taking you home now." The kids protested softly, but Marlene gently guided them to gather toys and jackets. Pamela helped her movements mechanical. Timothy stood and offered me his hand. I took it brief, firm. "We'll talk soon, Dad," he said. I nodded. "When you're ready to plan properly. Not before." They filed out with the children. Pamela gave me one last look, guilt mixed with something like shock, then closed the door behind them. The car started, headlights swept the trees. and the sound faded into the night. I sat there in the quiet cabin, the weight of the day settling. My heart rate had steadied, but the ache remained deeper, more emotional than physical. They'd heard the doctor's words. They'd seen my face. They'd felt the shift. For the first time in years, the next move wasn't mine to make. It was theirs. 2 months later, autumn leaves began drifting across the lake's surface in lazy spirals. I sat on the cabin porch, wrapped in a wool blanket, watching the colors shift from green to gold and red. I had blocked Timothy's and Pamela's numbers after a handful of half-hearted apology texts. "We're sorry, Dad. We'll do better. Can we talk?" that never included real change. The silence that followed felt strange at first, like missing a tooth, but it soon became peaceful. My days settled into a steady rhythm. I drove to the clinic every 4 weeks for checkups, never missing one. The arrhythmia stabilized with the new regimen meds taken at the same time each morning, no skipped doses. I started walking the lakeshore trail every sunrise, slow at first, then longer loops as my stamina returned. The crisp air and steady pace cleared my head better than any pill. In town, I joined a senior community group that met twice a week at the local library. We talked about heart health, shared recipes, low in sodium, laughed about grandkids who never called. I met people like me, widowed, retired, learning to live alone without apology. One man, a former mechanic named Frank, became a regular walking partner. We'd circle the park, swapping stories about the families we'd once carried on our backs. Marlene still came by most weekends, bringing coffee and stories from her garden. She never pried about Timothy and Pamela. She just sat with me, quiet company that didn't demand anything. Her presence reminded me I wasn't completely alone. I had chosen who stayed in my life. On the other side, Timothy and Pamela had hired a full-time nanny. The cost ran close to $4,000 a month, eating into their savings and forcing overtime at work. Pamela's job required late nights. Timothy traveled more. They traded shifts, watching the boys' arguments flaring over schedules. The kids asked about Grandpa less often, but when they did, the answers were short. Family gatherings grew smaller. Relatives who once commented kids come first now sent awkward holiday cards without invitations. I started a journal on the porch table. Thin pages filled slowly with thoughts I'd never spoken aloud. Lines about Ellen, how she'd loved the lake in fall, how she'd have told me to stop carrying everyone else's weight. Pages for the boys, memories of their laughter, explanations for why I stepped back, hopes they'd understand one day. I wrote about the guilt I'd carried, the fear of dying alone, the relief of finally choosing myself. The pages stayed in a drawer. I hadn't sent them yet. Maybe I never would. They were for me first. I didn't regret the distance. The surface-level family ties had been comfortable, but they'd cost me too much. My blood pressure stayed in range. My energy returned. Sleep came easier, without the constant worry of the next crisis call. The lesson settled deep. A parent's health isn't currency to spend on family duty. Guilt trips can blind people to their own needs, especially when children grow up and get busy. In America, adult kids often see aging parents as convenient safety nets, free childcare, last-minute help, without realizing the toll. But when that net frays from overuse trust doesn't just bend, it breaks permanently. Real family means mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. It means planning ahead, not assuming availability. It means listening when someone says, "I can't," instead of pushing harder. I closed the journal and looked out at the water. The lake reflected the changing sky, clear, still unhurried. I had lost the illusion of closeness. In its place, I gained something solid. My health, my peace, my voice. For the first time in decades, I felt truly free.